All right, everybody. So we're going to be going over the effects of vaping in adolescents today. So our objectives for this presentation are learn about vaping and e-cigarettes, adolescent development, and the historical significance of targeted advertisement towards adolescents and how that impacts adolescent vaping. Number two, we're going to be learning about biopsychosocial impacts of vaping in adolescents, and then we're going to be learning about the policies, the different vaping policies in the United States, best practices for vaping intervention, and recommendations for the future. All right, so e-cigarettes, or more commonly known as vape pens, are electronic devices that come in a variety of shapes and sizes and are used to heat a liquid called either an e-liquid, e-juice, or vape juice into an aerosolized form for the user to inhale. There are several different types of vape pens, and they are either disposable, refillable, or pre-filled. Um, as I was saying, they come in a variety of shapes and sizes. Most commonly, ones I've seen are the jewels that look like USB flash drives, but you can also get some that look like pens um, and different things like that. The most in the e-liquid or vape juice is nicotine, THC or CBD. They also have harmful things like ultrafine particles, um, carcinogens like formaldehyde and acetaldehyde, heavy metals like tin and lead, and they also have ingredients like flavorings that can be detrimental to your lung health, as well as propylene glycol or glycerin as a binding agent. Um, these devices all of them can be either hacked or modified to increase the amount inhaled, change the refilling liquid, or increase tank size. Those are just some of the modifications that you can have. And then some of the most common vape brands out there in the United States are Juul, Geek Bar, and Fuse. Okay, so now we know a little bit about what an e-cigarette or a vape is. Now let's talk about adolescence. Adolescence is a transitionary period between childhood and adulthood. It is marked by rapid physical maturation, cognitive development, and emotional development. There's an increased interest in social and romantic or sexual relationships, and an increase in risk taking and impulsive behaviors. Remember that last one. That's going to come up a lot in this slides. All right, so now we know a little bit about adolescent development. We know a little bit about what e-cigarettes are, and now let's talk about tobacco and vape companies and how they use advertisements to get adolescents hooked on vaping and nicotine. This has historically been done since major tobacco companies were in business. One of the things they would do in the early 1900s would be take and put baseball cards in packs of cigarettes, and ways they would get kids, especially young men, buying more cigarettes was it would be able to complete a collection of them, things like that. So really underhanded and shady techniques focused on advertising young people. Vape companies are still doing the same thing. They're just taking that playbook and tweaking it. So things like interfering with research and shaping the evidence base. The research arm JLI Science, which is a merger between Altria and Juul Labs. Only 46% of their pre-specified outcomes were reported or properly declared, which is a huge concern about selective reporting bias. Additionally, the odds of finding no harm in vaping products are 66.92 times higher if the study is industry related. Additionally, positive PR campaigns and increasing the corporate image by establishing allies outside of the tobacco industry help to undermine help to shape the tobacco control agenda and undermine tobacco control policies. For example, one of the things in the UK that is being done is vape starter kits are now being provided to smokers under a government-led smoking cessation initiative. So things like lobbying, and then, as I was saying, the underhanded advertising techniques. One of those things is describing vapes as water-based and less harmful than cigarettes, which is not a true statement at all. And then another way that they are able to pull in more adolescents is strategically targeting them with products that feature really neat flavors like mango and bubblegum and things like that, and really cool looking designs, packaging aesthetics, and like things like ease of concealment in their products, as well as product affordability and the presence of nicotine or THC. So the fact that they let their buyers know that you can modify the cartridges and things is another way that they are kind of getting their hooks in just a little bit more. Because of this, adolescent vaping has increased from 20.6% in 2016 to 43.6% in 2024, which is a significant increase in the use of nicotine products. So once they have gotten these adolescents on the, like got their hooks into them, got them on the line, reeling them in, here are some of the trends in adolescent vape use according to the CDC. So as we were saying previously, vape companies market flavored vaping products. So 87.6% of adolescents use flavored vapes. 26.3% use a vape daily. Typically, those are going to be like one use. So once they're done, they can just be thrown away. So they're the disposable ones. There is a higher percentage of females vaping in comparison to males of the same age, which I thought was really interesting. But if you look at like societal pressure, that makes a little bit more sense. Males are typically more interested in like smoke-free tobacco products like chewing and dipping, things like that. 37.8% of vape users also use a secondary form of tobacco products. This is called dual use. So if you're vaping, you might still be dipping, or you're vaping and you're smoking weed, things like that. And then additionally, 30.6% of vape users report using their device for marijuana. So that would also fall into that dual use category. All right, so we have gotten the adolescents on the line. We've been reeling them in. They're just kind of hanging out there. So these are some of the biological impacts of adolescent vaping. You've got respiratory issues like lung cancer and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, cardiovascular issues like elevated blood pressure, hardened arteries, accelerated heart rate, etc. Brain The impact on the brain is it modifies dopamine sensitivity. It alters the prefrontal cortex development. So it just can take longer for that prefrontal cortex to develop, which is still developing during adolescence. That goes back to those risky behaviors and things like that, helps with those things. And then you have an increased susceptibility to addiction to other forms of substances. Then it affects your immune system by decreasing its functioning, which has a greater susceptibility to disease and healing time. And then, as I was saying, with addiction, you've got your withdrawals, you've got your irregular dopamine regulation because you're getting those that nicotine to bind and draw on your dopamine receptors. So you get a boost in dopamine when you smoke, and then it kind of goes back. So you just have a hard time regulating that, which is already difficult during this developmental phase. So some of the psychological impacts of vaping in adolescence is increased rates of anxiety and depression, increased rates of suicidal ideation and self-harm, memory impairment, and underdevelopment of that prefrontal cortex. Again, we're going back to that prefrontal cortex and its impact on the risky behaviors that adolescents already have, and because of things like nicotine would increase because of the underdevelopment of that prefrontal cortex. Additionally, the social impact is decreased academic performance. There is a correlation between academic performance and nicotine usage. So typically, if a student is using nicotine fairly heavily, they do have a decrease in their performance academically. There are also social consequences, the normalization of substance abuse, and again, the increase of risky behaviors. Those increase in risky behaviors can also decrease your academic performance, also provide social consequences, and also like continue that normalization of substance abuse by trying different substances or new substances, things like that. Current policies in the United States are age requirements, so no tobacco products can be sold to anyone under the age of 18. Fun fact, in Alabama, the age of requirement is 19. There are flavored vape restrictions. So 7 states and 388 counties have banned the sale of flavored vape products, and enforcement of regulations on marketing vape flavored products to adolescents has been pushed by the FDA very heavily. However, one of the issues as of 2023, some companies still have flavored vape products on the market. You can see them if you go into a gas station. This is due to incomplete application revision by the FDA. Taxation on vaping products and smoke-free air laws are also some of the current policies in the U.S. If you follow this link, you can go to the Truth Initiative and they'll have more information about that. Some of the current interventions and best practices for helping like vape addictions and smoking cessation are the Stanford Reach Labs Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, Truth Initiatives, This Quitting Works. You have nicotine replacement therapy, as well as things like caregiver behavioral modeling, preventative peer pressure, and open empathetic conversations from a caregiver or friend. Some of the recommendations for adolescent vaping is increasing age restrictions to 21 plus, restriction of the sale of flavored vape products, vape-free air laws, banning of marketing towards adolescents, increased warning on vape products, increased prices on vaping products, and comprehensive vaping education. These are all some things that I feel like would be very beneficial to helping to lower the rate of adolescents vaping. All right, thank you guys so much for listening to this video. Sorry I had to cut it short, but I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. Bye.